Hi guys, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Kristaps Porzingis, or Porzingod, as people used to refer to him. Not so much anymore. Wonder why that is. Here's an article, comes to you from Hoops Hype. Kristaps Porzingis is having one of his best seasons. Why are people down on him? This one comes to us from Jerome Miron, USA Today. Dallas Mavericks big man Kristaps Porzingis is in the midst of a solid campaign so far this season. Or is he? But the general mood of the 25-year-old centre has seemingly soured during his time with the team. Has it? I don't think his mood soured. I haven't heard that, but maybe it has. Porzingis is still one of the most unique players, setting the precedent as a 3-and-D big man. We're going to question that in a minute. He's currently averaging 2.3 three-pointers and 1.6 blocks per game so far this season. Before this season, there are only three other players, KD, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Brook Lopez, in league history who have accomplished such a feat. His scoring, 20.4 points per game, is the second highest mark in his career, while his field goal percentage, 47.7%, ranks as a career best. He is turning the ball over less often than ever before, too, as his career turnover percentage before this season was 9.3%, while this year it sits at 7%. Further, he has recorded a career best mark in catch-all stats, including win shares per 48 minutes and offensive blocks plus minus via Basketball Reference. They are a team that would presumably only go as far as Porzingis can take them. I'm not sure. To me, this is nonsense. Clearly, the most important player on the team is Luka Doncic. So saying they can only go as far as Porzingis can take them doesn't seem correct, especially when his on-off numbers don't show that. That could be pretty far considering when he scores at least 24 points, the Mavericks are 7-2 this season. Well, that's true. Last year as well, when he played well, the Mavericks were a much better team. Very true. Mavs PR said, Kristaps Porzingis has now posted a double-figure scoring first quarter in each of his last three games after he started the season with three such opening quarters in his first 26 games combined. So obviously, he's recovering from injury, and he's still struggling a bit athletically. That's probably what's hampering him earlier in the season. And I think as the season goes along, he's been slowly improving. One would assume that people would perceive this to be a good year for the former number 4 overall pick. Yet, as ESPN's Tim McMahon explained earlier this month, the first half of the season wasn't much fun for the 25-year-old big man. As he recovered from an injured meniscus and the Mavericks struggled to find a rhythm due to the ongoing pandemic, Porzingis ended up hearing his name in trade rumors, and his future in Dallas briefly appeared murkier than ever. I'm just going to address this before I move on, because this is just ridiculous. They didn't struggle to find a rhythm because of the pandemic. They were doing just fine during the pandemic, during the playoffs last year, until Porzingis went down, in fact. They were clearly the better team between themselves and the Clippers. So, struggling because of the pandemic? I don't think so. Struggling because of Porzingis coming back to the team, not being 100%, not having full mobility, more than likely. Struggling because they traded away their best three-point shooter, Seth Curry, to Philadelphia, where Philly has now thrived, right? Yeah. And traded for Josh Green, who has struggled from three, clearly. That, to me, those two reasons, to me, are the main reasons why the team has struggled, not because of COVID. As he recovered from an injured meniscus and the Mavericks struggled to find the rhythm, Porzingis ended up hearing his name in trade rumors. The front office opted to hold on to their unicorn and ownership came to his defense. But why isn't the consensus opinion about him more positive? I believe they definitely tried to trade him. Mark Cuban pretty much admitted as much in the way he talked about it. That much is clear. One reason critics may be louder than usual is that his defensive playmaking has taken a huge step back. After averaging 2 blocks per game through his first 4 seasons in the NBA, with as many as 2.4 blocks per game during his All-Star campaign in 17-18, he is now swatting away at a lower rate of 1.6 blocks per game. Now, when writers tell you this stuff, they are almost intentionally trying to confuse you because the number of blocks you get per game is not indicative of your defensive abilities. It's just the same as with the number of steals you get per game. Sure, it may be, and it may not be. Why is Hassan Whiteside not valued as a quality defender when he's led the league in blocks several times? Last year, what did he have? 2.7 blocks per game. And still, nobody seemed to really want him on the trade market. Sacramento picked him up for nothing. So clearly, the number of blocks you get per game is not indicative of your defensive ability. What is indicative of your defensive ability is your ability to stop the other team from scoring. And that doesn't just come from blocks, does it? He is still an above-average rim protector. That's to be questioned. Let's have a look at that in a minute. Just look at his size advantage that he has over even large NBA players, but he has not exactly performed as the elite player who had the league's best block percentage just 3 seasons ago. Similarly, after averaging 0.7 steals per game before this season, he's recorded just 0.4 steals per game in 2020-2021. This makes no difference. 0.4 steals to 0.7 steals. Statistically insignificant. To fully put into perspective, his steal percentage of 0.6% ranks in the 5th percentile among all big men per cleaning the glass. I don't think that provides any real perspective into the matter. Moving on. It should be concerning that Dallas is allowing 119.3 points per possession when he is on the floor, but the defensive rating is more than 8 points better during minutes that he is not playing. There we come to the heart of the matter. Obviously, Dallas knows this. Dallas are not stupid. They've seen the numbers. They know he's injury prone. They can see this, what's happened here. Dallas is the worst defensive team in the league when Porzingis is on the court. The worst. So the blocks he's providing clearly show it makes no difference to his defensive capacity whether or not he gets 1 or 2 blocks per game. The difference is in his mobility and his effort. And clearly, those two things haven't been here this season. Let's watch the video from Justin Block. Okay. This is just showing Porzingis', I think, in my opinion, lack of effort on some plays. As always, these figures have a lot of noise, but such a big swing will raise some eyebrows, especially when he lacks burst and athleticism. Extrapolating on that, during each of his previous 4 campaigns, teams with Porzingis have always had a better net rating when he is on the court. This year, for the first time in his NBA career, that is no longer the case. I think this will reverse. I think likely by the end of the season, this will reverse and he'll be a plus for the team. He just needs to get back his mobility and some of his athleticism that I think will come with time. Advanced metrics illustrate how poor he has been considering that his defensive regularized adjusted plus minus DRAPM currently ranks number 459 out of 505 players who have made an appearance in the league so far this season. In other words, he's 459 out of 505 players on defense. That is terrible. Any team trotting out a 7'3" player in their front court would hope for a bigger defensive impact than what Dallas has gotten from Porzingis thus far this season. However, even though his defense may be the biggest concern, his offense may not be as multidimensional as the Mavericks may have hoped for when they traded for him back in January 2019. We all remember when Dallas head coach Rick Carlisle had an infamous rant about why the post-up is no longer a good play in the NBA. That is one of the reasons why Porzingis is so reliant on jump shots for his scoring. Carlisle wasn't just ranting. Carlisle was looking at the advanced metrics, and he's clearly Porzingis is not good on the post-up. In fact, he's never been a good post-up player. And the likelihood of him becoming a good post-up player ever is extremely low. Carlisle was not an idiot. He's smart. Carlisle was right. But while his jumper has separated Porzingis from other front court players in the past, he has not been overwhelmingly accurate. He's shooting 35% on non-corner three-pointers per cleaning the glass, which ranks in just the 51st percentile among all players at his position. He's also averaging 1.06 points per possession on his catch-and-shoot jumpers via synergy, which is slightly below average, 47th percentile among all NBA players. But he's a center, so maybe comparing him to all NBA players isn't quite the fair thing to do here. Because he is typically spotting up beyond the arc to hit those looks, He's not often able to use his size for easy putbacks after offensive rebounds. Of course, this is a trade-off that Dallas is willing to make because he is a big man with ridiculous. A lot like another player on the Milwaukee Bucks, he's a valuable player. Can you think of who I'm talking about? If you know who I'm talking about, write his name in the comments. Look how far his man has to guard him, far beyond the arc if he hits ridiculous shots like these, where he was able to connect from 32 feet.
Over to Porzingis, shot clock at 10. Game clock now at 2.5 minutes. A long three out by the Loco.
Yeah, that was a nice shot, and it looked like it was within his range. In fact, Kristaps has an incredibly fast trigger. I think if on some of his shots he just took a little bit more time, he'd be more accurate. But if his jumper is otherwise about on par with other players at his position, opposing defenses may soon become more willing to solely focus on Doncic. Porzingis still needs to increase his efficiency as a shooter, even if his output hasn't been bad, to maximize his role with Dallas. If he can do that, the best case scenario would be increased effectiveness on his pick and pop opportunities with Doncic when they break into two-man actions. This has long been considered the best version of these two players. Meanwhile, as there are with every other player in any sport, there are other small elements of his game that may be alarming for some folks who are seeking perfection. For example, when he's the last man down the floor in transition, Dallas has not shied away from giving him the ball as a trailer. Yet, according to Synergy, he's only 5 for 22, 22.7% on these opportunities. This has limited what the Mavericks have been able to do in the open court. Their transition scoring 15.6 points per game ranks third worst in the Western Conference. Now, the fact that the writer has drawn a correlation between these two events, the fact that Porzingis has shot 5 for 22 on trailing attempts, that's a statistically minuscule number. That could completely change if you went to, say, 100 attempts. Those numbers could be very effective. So it's not enough to draw out a conclusion from 22 attempts ever when you're making any sort of statistical analysis. The fact that he's connected that to the Mavericks' poor transition scoring of only 15.6 points per game is a huge stretch. The two may have no correlation to each other whatsoever, and I suspect they don't. Overall, people may be down on Porzingis because of his defense and perhaps some of his offensive shortcomings. But ultimately, as he keeps getting healthier and more dominant, it might be time to start giving Porzingis his flowers and credit for good play where it's due. Now, in my mind, the biggest problem with Porzingis is his injury history. Let's have a look here. Porzingis, first season, he plays 72 games. Really good. Things are looking great. Second season, he did get injured. He played a few less. He played 66 games. Third season, he played 48. So he played half the season in his third season. The following year, he didn't play at all due to an ACL tear. Then, in his age 24 season, or his fifth season in the league, he played only 57 games, and thus far, he's played only 31. So he's missed about 15 games this year as well. The dude is 7'3". He's got a terrible injury history. So it's anyone's guess as to whether or not he'll regain his previous form and to whether or not he'll get injured again. That could happen tomorrow. In fact, I would predict that his career will be significantly shortened because of his injury history and his height. Two bad omens. 7'3" players really struggle to stay on the court. That's just a fact. Let's look at his numbers here this season. 47% from the field, 36% from three, and his two-point percentage has drastically improved to 55%. That's a huge increase. Of his second best numbers, he shot 50% from the field in his 16-17 career when he was age 21. So that's a huge increase, and that's over the course of 31 games. So that's a good indicator that there's a good chance continue to shoot better on his twos, which he's not been very good at for a 7'3" player in the past. He shot 82% from free throw range, got an 8.9 rebounds. That's about the norm for Porzingis. 1.6 assists, 1.6 blocks. So since his earlier games this season, his block rate has increased. as his mobility has started to return. That's a good sign. He's had 1.4 turnovers, very good turnover numbers, and he scored 20.2 points per game. His advanced numbers, his player efficiency rating is an all-time best for him, for his career. He's up at 21.4 when he was at 20.2 last season. His plus-minus, he's plus 2.5 on offense and minus 0.5 on defense. Which gives him a plus of 2 for the season. Interestingly, though, he was minus 0.3 in year 2 in the league at age 21. So maybe he's just an overrated defender in general. Maybe we've always overrated Porzingis and never realized that he wasn't as good of a defender as we wanted him to be. So, trade. NBA trade rumors suggest that the Dallas Mavericks have been trying to find out what forward Porzingis' trade value is. Okay, we all know this. Dallas was trying to trade the guy. And maybe if they weren't trying to trade the guy, they were trying to find out what they could get for him. And then, if what they could get for him was good, they might have traded him. Now, Porzingis knows this. Porzingis probably isn't too happy that they've been trying to trade him. His perception would have to be, they think I'm not that valuable. They think the team's better without me. This is not a good thing for his psychology, of course. Whoever leaked these trade rumors, I mean, if this leak came from Dallas, which I hope it didn't, and I assume that it wouldn't have, then that would be terrible. But really, Dallas needs to try and do a better job, as some other teams do, of keeping this stuff on the lowdown. Don't let your players know that you want to trade them. That's the last thing you want to do. Even if you have 100% full intention to trade them, as soon as the league knows, their value drops straight away. And that player doesn't want to be there anymore. So don't do that. If you want to trade a player, keep it freaking silent. Keep it quiet. Don't let them know. Do everything you can to keep it silent. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.